Hey, well, welcome to the Beyond Sundays podcast. My name is Brett Stewart, and I am your host. And today, I have with me Carson Grigsby. Carson, tell the people hello and what's up.
What's up, everybody?
Yes, I'm so excited to have Carson. When I mentioned to him this podcast and having him part of it, he I don't even know how to describe it. He was. What do the kids say? Lit.
Yeah, I was lit and like ready to get after it. Just jump in. I was ready to turn up.
Turn up, yeah. I'm showing my age now. I was a youth pastor at one time, and for like 6.5 years, and I used to know what teenagers said. Now I have no clue. So I definitely feel old. But I am so excited that you are with us, Carson, for this conversation. The conversation we just had with our guest was powerful. It was incredible. But Carson, tell people a little bit about who are you, what do you do, and why are you excited for the conversation that we just had and for this episode?
Yeah, well, like Brett said, my name's Carson Grigsby. I'm a senior at Wiley High School. I was born and raised in Abilene. Started attending Beltway Park Church 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Had my life radically changed by the church, not the building, but the people here.
Yeah.
God just moves through the people here. And like I said, my relationship with God has just flourished so much since coming here. I'm a student leader here for BSM South. Shout out to my
Beltway Student Ministry for those who don't know BSM.
BSM South. Shout out to my BSM fam out there. I'm a student leader as well as on the worship team and get to lead a worship team on Sunday mornings up at youth. And so I've been super thankful for what God's doing through Beltway. I'm super excited for this conversation that we just had. Two of the main things that really just stuck out to me during our time together was the importance of relationship and connection with God and with people.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to battling our mental health and winning the war in our minds, if we don't have those two things, it's going to be really hard to win the battle of our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way that leads us into the episode and into the conversation that we just had with our guests. So Carson, if you're ready, let's let them in and get rolling.
Let's do it.
All right, well, today we have a number of special guests. First, we have Shelly Presley with us, and then we also have Nathan Healy. Nathan, it's great to have you back.
Good to
on
see
the
you, Brett.
podcast. It's so great to see you, and I mean that. So, Shelly, tell me, who are you? What do you do? How long have you been in Abilene at Beltway? And then we'll bump it over to Nathan for him to give a refresher to people who maybe didn't hear the episode he was on before.
So my name's Shelly Presley. I'm married to my wonderful husband, Eric. We have 5 children, all boys.
5 boys.
5 boys. It's a party.
Intense.
Sometimes a good one, sometimes a bad one, but it's always a party.
Always a party.
Always a party at our house. Yep. And let's see, I've lived in Abilene the majority of my life since I was 18.
I like that you avoided saying how many years that is. How many years is that?
That's a good
Shell?
32 years, minus about 2 overseas and 3 right after
So
college.
you've pretty much been in Abilene the
I'm an
entirety of
Abilenian.
my life,
The
which I've
entirety of
also
my
been in
life.
Abilene. So we've been in Abilene around the same amount
It's
of
good.
time.
It's awesome. I love Abilene.
That's fantastic. So
yes,
what
it's
do
fun.
you do, Shelly?
So I currently stay at home mom and do life coaching for families, parents, and teenagers.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
are my clientele, but I did private practice for a long time as in marriage and family therapy, and now I'm focused in at home because I'm raising
That's awesome.
teenagers and young adults.
Yeah.
And 1 preteen, and don't leave out the preteen because they are quite the party too. So
I'm sure they're their own
they are.
breed.
They're wonderful though.
So
It's all good.
yeah, Nathan, who are you? And who are you?
Well, I am Nathan.
That's great. That's it. That's Nathan. Let's go on.
So I'm a student pastor here at Beltway, and I came to Abilene for college. So 2009.
All right.
And I was here for 4 years, and then I moved away to be a youth pastor for a few years, and I've been back here for 5 years. So my wife grew up here, has been a part of Beltway for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And, something I will say is like Beltway is a huge part of my testimony. Like this is really where my faith came on fire.
Yeah.
So we've just loved being back here and being in this community the last 5 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm
Whoop.
glad you're here. Also,
And
Nathan.
also,
yeah.
I have to give a shout out to my children as well.
Oh, shout out.
Yes.
Come on.
I have a 3.5-year-old daughter who I just took to lunch today.
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
had a daddy-daughter lunch date and we turned up. And
I'm going to need you to stop talking about that or I'll cry. So.
She was talking about her birthday, which is in like 4 months, and she's
Yes.
already planning
Sounds
it.
like a typical girl.
And I said, "What
Planner.
kind of cake are you going to get, Annalie?" "Chocolate cake." It's like, that's my girl.
Nice.
And then I have a 1-year-old son, and he likes to headbutt me. That's kind of his thing.
Yes.
So
That's
awesome.
That's how we bond.
That's awesome. And Nathan and I have had the joy of going on a handful of like
Oh,
backpacking
gosh.
adventures, but I won't tell any of those stories
Yes.
here.
Surviving bear attacks, basically.
Surviving bear attacks
That's-
and bear screams from where we just came from. Bear growls. They're not really screams.
Yeah,
I guess they're called growls. And bear
Sounds like it
lingo.
wasn't real by the way you said it.
Well, one of the reasons why I have all of these people gathered here today is we want to talk and look into the aspect of mental health when it comes to teenagers, when it comes to students. And so I'm going to kind of kick the ball over to Shelly and Nathan. But what are some trends that you are seeing, or what are some things that are being highlighted from you both have a unique perspective into the lives of teenagers. Shelly working with them, but also being a mother of them, and then Nathan being a student pastor. What are some things that you're seeing and noticing that's going on right now in the lives of teenagers?
One of the things that's a huge deal right now that we're seeing on the increase is anxiety, just across the board. And
Yeah.
part of the thing I want to say about that is it's important to understand that we're a part of an anxious system right now
Yeah.
in our nation and in our world, and a
Absolutely.
level that honestly we didn't experience even maybe 2 to 5 years ago. And so
Yep.
as part of that, where we kind of have acclimated maybe, or learning, I should say, to acclimate as adults, our kids are thrown into this at
Yeah.
developmental stages that are extremely they're just younger than we
Yeah.
are trying to manage the same levels of stress. I think the other thing that I would say that plays hugely into anxiety, depression, maybe fear, just a generalized sense of overwhelmed. I think a lot of our kids and students feel. So I'm going to address a few things that I think that I'm watching
Yeah.
play into that. But one is social media, and where growing up in younger generations, we could get away, right, from stress
Yeah.
of teenage relationships and, maybe immature comments or people or things, and you come home to your safe place and you're with
Yeah.
your people that love you unconditionally, value you, support you, encourage you. Hopefully that's the home environment that we're producing, a kingdom environment at home where our kids are free to fail and free to learn and free to grow. They never really escape, if you will, the tensions of teenage relationships because
Yeah.
it's always before them on
Yeah.
their phone.
Yeah.
So where there used to be a natural break, it's just important, I think, for parents to understand they're not getting a natural break
Yeah.
from those things.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I'm a millennial. Nathan's a millennial. Our generation, I see, struggling with anxiety, and there is a large attachment to the phone and to social media. But our generation is like the last one that didn't always grow up with technology. Like that kind of technology. Like we had it maybe the latter part of our teenage years, but I didn't get an iPhone until I was in college. I didn't get a phone until I had a driver's license. And so, that's a great point, Shelly, of like this generation behind us and the ones to come, like it's it's in their face all the time, and its notifications are always popping up, and they can't get that break.
And the other thing I would say is we're used to as adults, we would maybe filter some of the world news or some of the things that, you're saying as parents, okay, well, I may need to carry that burden in prayer. I may need to be aware of that. Well, our kids have it right here.
Yeah.
So I had a son the other night, and we were just sitting on the couch having family time, just all of us, talking. And all of a sudden I see this look come over his face. And this is my feeler. I have I have a kid that feels deeply. And I'm just watching his face. I'm like, hey, bud, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'll be okay. Just a minute, Mom. I'm like, whoa, what just happened? We were like chilling, having fun, And he's like, Mom, in Afghanistan, this, and this is happening. Yeah. And he's watching it visually on his phone. And so I'm not ditzing. I'm not here to talk about phones or whatever.
Yeah.
We have interesting rules at our house about phone. But I'm saying to us, information overload, relational non-breaks, right? Where we're connected to the people that we're close to, safest with, all these things, really, really plays in, along with, I believe, one of the things we're seeing is just the overload of teenagers on activities. That's just straight up different.
Yeah.
And they do not know margin.
Yeah.
They don't know margin emotionally. They don't know margin right now relationally very much because of some of the things I just described. And they just don't have margin to even feel or to come down off of feelings and just be. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And so therefore, their literal brain and physical bodies stay heightened all the time, where normally in anxiety, everybody feels anxious at some levels. That's part of...
We all face anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
And what levels and what causes that and what triggers that is very unique to each individual. But our ability to navigate that, right, physically, spiritually, emotionally, it requires margin that I just don't think our kids, teenagers, in the level of activity that they push, both at school, academics, sports, any kind of extracurricular activities, friends, normal life, just stays so heightenedly fast that it's really hard to come down and even have process time. And then a lot of times if they do have process time in our homes, we're also disconnected because of phones or TV or whatever. There's not a whole lot of true, genuine connection. And if I were going to say anything, don't even get me started on what would really help our kids emotionally and mentally, it would be dinner table time, which feels impossible, but we have to make it work, or conversation time or prayer time with our kids where I don't care if it's 5 minutes, grab your kids up, get them in the living room and say, and pray over them and let them hear you or process with them. How was your day? Tell me your high. Let them experience and focus their brain on something that was positive. Tell me your low. Why was that hard for you? Just connection would be go so far, I believe, with today's kids. Literal, genuine eye, physical touch connection.
Yeah. That's really good. And I remember literally this last week, I just kind of took a fast away from my phone and from like social media apps. And I sit back and look at this last week and remember how many times I've just randomly like pick up my phone as if I was like checking to see if there's a notification. Like, it's honestly what drives, I feel like, my friends and my generation is our phones. And I think about it also is that how much anxiety my phone actually causes me throughout my day. Like, of how much I'm like, oh gosh, this person didn't text me back, or I got to go back and answer this person because I forgot to do it yesterday, or just XYZ, or I'm going to go look at social media. And then now I'm, behind on all my schoolwork now because it's just used as a distraction. And so I think you're so right in that idea that our phones do distract us so much and cause like so much anxiety in our lives.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed, and I know this in myself, is it's so hard for me to just break away and be and rest. And sometimes I attribute it to my personality. Sometimes I attribute it to like projects that are going on. But even I find myself, if I do kind of designate some times to just like decompress, like I'm automatically like reaching for my phone to scroll through and see what's going on in the world. And that's not actually decompression at all. It's not allowing me a place to process through what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, which is leading to, me choosing the things that I'm choosing. So yeah, it's so hard to break away, but I think that that's a key part of mental health is creating the space and the place to rest and to be okay with it. But I want to ask you, Carson, this and in yourself and what you see in your peers. I know for me, I was always afraid to slow down because if I did, what good would I have to offer to the world? I was wrapped up in performance. And so I felt like if I ever slowed down and wasn't accomplishing something for people or being significant for people, that I would have no worth. Is that something in you or among your peers? Is that contributing to maybe a fear of slowing down? Because it kind of like Shelley said, there's an increase, activity, like extracurricular activities, sports, being on Instagram. Maybe there's this idea of having to be like a social media influencer and that your purpose is attached to what you produce. I don't know. I kind of want to pass that to you.
Yeah.
What do you see in yourself and in others?
It's crazy you asked that. I do this discipleship group with Nathan and Paul, our other youth pastor. It's called Turn Up Tuesdays on Tuesdays.
Turn Up Tuesdays.
It's now officially called that.
It's officially called that now.
I love that.
But literally this last week, we were just kind of having a conversation about things that we could be better about. And one of the things that the Lord put on my heart this last week is just slowing down. Because I got this word from someone a few months ago that this last year the Lord took me wide, but he wants me to go deeper with him. And then literally this last week I got reminded in a lesson that the opposite of depth is speed, that the enemy of depth is speed. Because if you think about like a boat, when a boat's going, the faster and faster it goes, it actually comes out of the water and gets shallower in the water.
Yeah.
When it slows back down, it sinks back down into the water and gets in more depth. And so as I think about my life constantly of going place to place as fast as I possibly can, like how many people I overlook. And right now in the church Beltway, we're going through the series called The Chosen, and we're watching The Chosen. And just from watching it, it really showed me how personal Jesus' ministry actually was. And so coming out of Activate at BSM and jumping into the semester, one of our, visions for this school year is just that we see the one. And so as I go throughout my day, like when the Lord put this on my heart, and not only that, but got challenged by Nathan and Paul and the rest of my BSM fam by this, I just asked myself, how do I see the one each and every day? And when I was asking the Lord this, he literally just said, you need to slow down. If you're going 100 miles an hour every day, every second, the odds of you hearing me speak and actually obeying my voice is going to be slim to none because you have pedal to the metal 24/7.
Yeah.
And so that's just one thing for me. He just invited me into this place to just slow down, just rest with him and go deeper with him so that I can see the one, so that I can follow him and become just in a more intimate relationship with him.
Yeah, that's good. I love that analogy of the boat. That'll preach right there.
You're all about boats, bro.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like that.
I just kind of want to swing this into just a challenge for parents. I'm not a parent of a teenager, but already with my kids being so young, I can just see this. You get into life and it's like my daughter's doing ballet. She's not doing a bunch of stuff after school. But, I mean, how often do we just wake up after 6 months or a year or 5 years and just say, what happened? And if going off this train of thought of for the one, I've found it as I'm learning to parent, I've found it sometimes overwhelming thinking I want to lead my kids into these things, but it comes down to just those simple moments, taking advantage. Like, I love what you're talking about, the dinner table. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. I just want to challenge parents listening to this. Like, take some time to just take a step back from your life and just see where are the small spaces that you can connect with your kids and help them process through things, and make for the one your kids first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before
Amen.
somebody
That's
outside of
right.
your family,
so
when
good.
you're reaching people with God's love.
And do not minimize the power of that, because listen, I have 5 boys, so the amount of games alone that I attend in any given week is a laughable joke. However, I will tell you, because of that, we do have to eat out some. Our dinner table does not always look like our dinner table at home. We fight for that. We fight for that hard. But you will find us at Sharky's some nights. It's close to our kids' school, in between multiple games. But we will sit down, look at each other in the eyes, and say, "Tell me your high today.
Yeah.
Tell me your low."
That's
we are
good.
going
That's great.
to carve out some way that we emotionally connect, and you have the opportunity to share your heart
Yeah.
and even get in touch with it. Literally, they will sit there, look up, and have to think about their high and their low because
Yeah.
they're just in go mode. But
Right.
I cannot imagine that versus when we go in at night and just for a minute say, "Hey, let me pray over you. Let me say," my husband does this, say a blessing over you.
Yeah.
Their body learns to still, their mind learns to still. They listen to a verbal, it's just like what you were saying, Nathan, a verbal blessing of someone that loves them unconditionally is going to take a moment to say, "I see you, you matter." And honestly, one of the foundations to emotional health outside of knowing that you're protected, cared for, and unconditionally loved by God, by someone on this earth, right? Which they need, because they're certainly not getting it from this world, right?
Yeah.
And they're watching people not do that all around them all day. Just the fact that you took time, and I'm not talking time like we don't have 45-minute bedtime, people. We got 5 kids.
Yeah.
That's a joke. We've got about 5 minutes
Yeah.
if we're having a good day. But we're going to speak where they hear, and their body's going to be able to relax and come under love and positive blessing and encouragement about who God is, who they are, and their value and purpose on the earth. And I'm just saying, if we could just do that more for our kids as a foundational place, right? Pray over them, actually engage the spiritual battle that is coming against them. You'd be surprised at how much God will take those small things to help them, because it also helps them. That valuing them gives them permission to value themselves. And mental health at the end of the day comes down to an individual choice to help to value themselves, to pay attention to what's going on inside, and to value themselves enough to feel safe to share it, get it out, and get it shared. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute, about how parents can be aware and what they can be aware of. But those are important things.
I just want to say one thing on top of that, like just to like parents out there who have teenagers, people that are my age. I remember just this last few months, the Lord's really put on my heart just to like spend time with my parents and actually like treasure the time, because like as I go throughout my senior year, like I am staying in Abilene for college and they'll be 15 minutes away, but like I'm no longer going to be living inside of the house with my parents like I've been doing for the last 18 years. So like those opportunities that I get to wake up every day and see them, say, "Hey, I love you guys. I hope you have a great day," or "Love you guys. I hope you have a good day. Have a good night." Like those opportunities are not there anymore. And so the opportunities to hang out with them just become smaller and smaller. And so, and especially the things of like speaking blessings over your family and over your kids and stuff. Oftentimes what I found myself doing with my parents when we kind of were walking through this whole thing of them saying, "Hey, like, we'd really love to have dinner this night or hang out and do something as a family," I would always say this. And I mean, I look back on it and I'm kind of mad that I would say this, but I would say, so like, I don't have time. I have so much going on right now. And it wasn't that I didn't have time. It was that I wasn't making the time to actually put in the effort to do those things.
Yeah.
And going back to your question that you asked me earlier about, all the extracurricular activities that are going on out there. And Nathan, you said this last night, like the foundational things to our faith. Like, yes, like reading the Bible and praying, they are very important things. Gathering with people and especially your family and your friends and your life group, like those are things that we have to make time for.
Yeah.
And when outside things start creeping in, such as extracurricular activities, there sometimes in my mind, I know for sure, they would sometimes trump going to church, or sometimes trump hanging out with my friends, sometimes trump actually hanging out with my family. And I look back and I'm like, it should have been the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And so I just think about that, is that it wasn't that I didn't have time, is that I wouldn't make the time. And so I just want to challenge some families out there that when that response is given, say, like, just talk about what the priorities actually are in our life.
Yeah, just amen to that. I just want to say, like, if I've seen one eye roll, I've seen hundreds from boys. And
Have you seen any eye rolls from the men in this room?
few, especially you. But
Called out.
I would say that we would say exactly what Carson's saying. Hey, we need some family time. It's like eye roll, and the last thing a teenager will act like they want to do is have family time. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, mostly they developmentally, even in their developmental phase, they're focused on their peers, and it's right and fine. But it's our job as parents to understand the value that they get from that time, the stability they get from that time, the understanding of unconditional love and connection that they get. And so with many eye rolls and with much prayer, we have had to say, okay, no, this is what it looks like for our family to value family time. And we may give you some grace on, hey, this week on family night, this time my best friend's having a birthday party. Okay, when are you going to give us family time?
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, so the older they get, like when they're young and they're even in junior high and they're not able to drive and stuff, that's one thing, because you can pretty much dictate that and help it.
Yeah.
But once they're driving and you're also wanting them to create that in them self-value, why? The reason I'm harping on this, y'all, is this. I believe this is, along with the Word of God and prayer, this relational connectedness is what is missing in our families and in our children.
Yeah.
And until they get it back, we can't expect that they're going to thrive emotionally. It is so foundational. So, we would say, okay, and some of the coolest times is when they've been busy and we're like, hey, girlfriends, boyfriends, I mean, here we go. It all is, trying to vie for time. And so we'd be like, hey, how's it going? Like, family time's been pretty nil this week. And so then, okay, yeah, I'll give you an hour, 2 hours. Awesome. Maybe it just ends up being me and one of my kids, right? Because they were busy those times. Yeah. But that one-on-one time is powerful.
Yeah,
right?
It is. And
it's powerful.
And we
take it.
We
take
actually
had
Jennifer Smotherman on the show earlier, and she spoke to anxiety and mental health in regards to children, with her being a counselor and that being a lot of her clientele. But she harped on that, the one-on-one time. And it doesn't have to be like,
no.
I think sometimes when, and it's not just parents to their kids, it's spouse to spouse.
Yes, it is.
It's adult kid to their adult parent and so on. Sometimes we complicate one-on-one time. It's going to be really deep and this and that. It's like, no, just talk about your life. I love that. I love, hey, what's the high? What's the low?
Yeah.
What's something interesting? Let's just kind of slow down a little bit and just be and know that you're cared for, you're seen, you're loved, you're chosen. And I think that is key, Shelly. I think that's
asking
missing.
somebody,
Yep.
what was your high today? They're like, oh, you value me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, absolutely.
I do.
I probably respond like your boys do when I'm asked that. I'm like, oh wait, I got to figure out what was good today. I got to figure out what was bad today. Like, my wife is so good at this, guys. She is amazing at slowing down and being so self-aware. I am not. And so she'll ask that, and I'm like, I don't know what was good today.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what was bad today. And she's like, what do you know about your day? And I'm like,
I did it.
that I did a lot of things.
That I'm here now.
That I'm here. And so but being asked that helps me discover and sort through even my own experiences and feelings through the day that I kind of just have tossed to the side and buried underneath all of the busyness.
Another great idea that I think comes in, Nathan, you may be able to speak to this maybe even better than what I'm going to give the gist, and we'll see where it goes, but is to understand that our teenagers are being bombarded with things that oppose the loving, encouraging, protective person of God's character. They're just in it. They're in an all-out, full throttle assault against the goodness of God. And so it's just really good for us to model and have open discussions about, hey, do you realize that at your very best and your very worst, God is rock solid in his love for you and his good purposes for you. Yeah, hey, I know it feels like your world is falling apart, and whether it's your friends or this particular relationship, breakup of a girlfriend, boyfriend, I understand right now that the enemy's coming full throttle and, you're not enough or you're not good enough but hey, I just want you to remember the thoughts of the Lord towards you are as many as the sands on the seashore. Mm-hmm. Don't forget. It doesn't have to be something, let's open the Bible and have a Bible study, though I'm not opposed.
Right.
We would do well to get our kids back to that. But I'm telling you, get the word of God in them. Mm-hmm. Get the heart of God in them towards them. And don't assume that church or that use the daily life scenarios to make sure that you're infusing, because it is part of emotional stability at a level that we don't realize how much it's being attacked right now.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I want to flip that to a challenge to any students that are listening. And I want to challenge you guys, like Carson was talking about, to make time for your family and to, take
even
advantage
if you don't want to, choose it.
Yeah, like to take advantage of what you do have around you. Like, and that's why I'm so passionate about what we do at BSM, because it's like, I understand not everybody's going to have that place in their family, and we're just praying, God, would you use us, that this could be a safe place where people can open up and be heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I was talking with my dad just about his mental health journey. And, he's been through a lot of just ups and downs and going through depression and just, going through counseling and medicine, and then also on a journey of knowing truth about God, but then stepping into, the authority that we have in God and being able to not by, just the amazing tools that we can be taught, but through the power of God, taking captive of, how the enemy's coming against him in his mind and all those kind of things. But he was just telling me, he's battled this since he was a teenager. And he was saying one of the best things he ever did was when he was a teenager, this battle started happening for him. He was new in his faith. He started digging into who is God, the truth about who God is and who God says that he is. And he said it was... he said, I was fighting a totally different battle after that because I was standing on solid ground.
Come on.
And I see this in student ministry. And, I want to throw out another challenge to students, any students listening. It's like, what voices are you listening to?
Amen.
Yeah.
Who are you letting speak into your life? Because if you're just getting it off of all the voices that we hear on social media and from the world and our friends and these things, we need people that are speaking truth into us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need people, and then
Amen.
why don't you go listen to the voice too?
Yeah, God's word.
Go into his word. And that's what we walked through at Activate this summer. It was like, okay, the enemy is pounding these thoughts in your mind. Well, these thoughts, they don't have to stay here.
Yeah.
Because you are a new creation and you have a new mind. God, would you help us live in the new mind? And then it's like, you can hear God's voice.
Yeah.
Not because, not if you've read enough of the Bible, you're good enough.
Not because you did enough stuff.
But because you're his son or his
good.
daughter and he's speaking to you.
Yeah.
Come on, can we tap into it, to hearing the truth and let that fill up our minds and wash out all the junk that the enemy is trying to fill our minds
Yeah,
with?
absolutely. And that's why, even we named the sermon series we're going through on mental health, Flip the Script. And the idea is that we change the narrative that's in our head. We change
so
the
good.
narratives that we're listening to, and we listen to the one who is truth, who is love,
Yeah.
and who is the standard. Something funny is I'm looking at Shelly across the room. I was pulling out some stuff. We moved some stuff around in a room the other day, and I was organizing some stuff, and I pulled out a couple of sheets from we'll call them sessions I had with you, because my life was a mess at one point. It still is. It's not really a mess now. Anyways, but like these sheets that Shelly was jotting notes on and kind of charting stuff out for me. They were so important that I laminated them, and I found them the other day. And it was so funny because it was right before we recorded another one of these podcasts. And in the bottom right-hand note, there was a note that said, God is the standard. And if we would like sit on that, like God's voice is the standard. God's truth is the standard. God's love is the standard.
That's
God's
so good.
acceptance is the standard. And I looked at that, and I was just reminded of everything, Shell, that you and I went through and what the Lord did. But like just what a powerful reminder, even for me. And now I get to throw that out here on this podcast of like, God is the standard. And I know it doesn't matter what it feels like. It doesn't matter how loud other voices are. It doesn't matter how many people are in agreement with a certain voice. If we change our perspective to God's voice being the standard, the battle changes. Like everything changes. And that's one of the powerful things with mental health is when we know the battle, when we know how we're being attacked, when we know how the enemy in our culture is attacking us, when we know how God loves us and is pursuing us, that empowers us to be able to choose what we listen to, what we align with, and what the narrative is, what the standard is.
I think about at my high school and stuff, how many people I talk to on a daily basis. And even at church camp this last year, how many conversations I had with people who somewhere in their past or even somewhere in the current time that they're going through, that they were just doubting the goodness of God. And that like God is for me. Like they couldn't wrap their minds around that, and they were just doubting it. And when it comes to anxiety and mental health and like gaining freedom from that, something that literally just that reminded me of, Nathan, what you're talking about is that like when we fill our minds with the truth, Jesus literally says in John 8:32, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. Yeah. And so when our minds are just focused upon Jesus, like we will have freedom. Amen. When we know the truth will set us free. I mean, that is a promise from God. Yeah. And so that's something that when I go throughout my day and even battling my own mental health, of anxiety, of just worries about the future, I'm able to sit there and say, God, I know that you are for me, that you are good, and that you're fighting for my good every single day, and that I can stand upon that truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And even what Carson just did there, we would call that a declaration. Like find a truth about the character and the nature of God and speak it. Like I have 3 truth words that I speak over myself daily. It's I'm seen, I'm significant, and I'm loved. And those things, the reason why I pick those 3 is because those are the exact counter to the struggles that I face on a daily basis. And so I flip the narrative so that I align myself with truth. And so I maybe want to shift it in a direction of what are some practical things that we can do to increase our mental health, increase our understanding of who we are, how we're loved, and our value. And I want to hear it from all of your angles, all of your perspectives. That's why you're here today. So who wants to go first? What are some things that we can do?
Something I've seen in students is isolation is just really, I think, where when students are in a place of isolation, it's just a wide open door for the enemy. And, just a practical encouragement, I think, is we need to get these thoughts that we're having in our mind, whether it's anxious thoughts or whether it's, along the lines of depression, or like really just thinking low thoughts about ourselves, we need to get those spoken out of our mouth, and so that it's not just sitting in darkness. And I just can think of different students along the years of student ministry that would come and share something, and I'm just breaks my heart, because I'm just thinking, I wish I knew so I could be in the battle with you, and I just think that's a huge thing. I think that, just opening up to the people around you that love you, to your family, to, people at church, and just being in a community where you can have those conversations, and where other people can fight this battle with you, because you were not designed to fight this alone.
No.
We need other people. We don't just need other people. We need people that know God, and that can fight, just this battle with us.
I think I completely agree with that. Isolation is what, even in the natural, when you look at isolation, that's when in nature, the enemy isolates to attack and to overcome. But when you stay with a herd, they can get you. Yep. And it's really cool to think about that, just even in nature. But here's something I'm going to speak from parental perspective right now, specifically with teens, is, without relationship and without creating a safe environment for your kids to be able to talk to you and share, they're going to get their answers and their perspective from their peers or social media.
Or their phone.
It's true. But what I want to say about that is starting very young, when you're intentional about your time with your kids, or when your kids mess up and you create the environment in your home or in your relationship that says it is safe for you to fail. Yeah. It is safe for you to come confess, talk about, share where you've missed the mark on anything. I don't care what it is. And I'm not saying, parents, that we lower the standard of righteousness. The standard of righteousness is there for peace and joy in life. I'm saying hold the standard, but how we approach them to say, you missed it, bud. Or you missed it, sweetheart. How can I come alongside you and walk with you to this standard, right? Not, you missed it, and why'd you do that? And you need to change. And this is the standard. Okay, great. This is the standard, but I'm with you in it all the way. And I'm going to help you develop the plan to back to here, because this is abundant life, not this is the way. And if you don't do it, then you're whatever. They get enough of that. In the home is where it has to be safe. Relational connection, where we're not always talking about your crud. The only voice you hear from me is not where you missed it. The voice that's permeating and prevalent because I spend time with you and I value you is how much you are seen, known, loved, valued, and it's safe. And I'm not going to overreact when you come in and confess things to me. I'm going to stay with you and say, thank you for sharing that. Or I'm going to ask, and you're not going to be able to stay hidden in your room. Hey, come on out, bud. Talk to me. What's going on? Yeah, they're going to say no. Don't give in for time one and send them back to their TVs. Don't. Or their video games. Stay in the battle. I mean, I've had to stay in the battle for weeks and months for one of my kids for over a year, saying to my husband, something is off, something is off, something is off. And he's like, I think he's just pulling away. No. What? And you stay in for a year and you keep asking, you keep developing the relationship until finally God moves. But in the spirit realm, this is how mental health stabilizes for kids. And we can go into more about how I think parents do need to be aware of signs of when it is time to get help. And I think that's hugely important, but that may be later.
I know we probably could have like multiple episodes on this. But how have you and Eric specifically grown in what you just described? Were y'all that way from the beginning?
Oh, gosh, no. Or we have to say to our oldest Jeremiah all the time, I'm so sorry. Would you please forgive us? Seriously, I mean, and I laugh about that, but It took 2.5 years for me to heal my relationship with my oldest, with Jeremiah.
Yeah.
My oldest born son. We have
Yeah.
an older adopted son, but I especially didn't learn that as well. Eric kind of is by nature a little calmer. I'm intense, which brings great life to our family, but it's a little much when you're yelling at your kids. And so, Jeremiah would say, "Mommy, you're yelling at me again," and I would 1,000 times have to apologize. And I worked my rear end off to learn a verbiage and a tone and approach that helps. But are you asking what we did?
Yeah, like for any parents that are listening right now, especially that have teenagers I mean, I know I was a teenager and one day I'll pay because I'll have a teenager that's probably like me. And so it's like to people that do have teenagers, or to those who have maybe preteens that are about to be teenagers, like what can they do as parents to maybe grow in this if it's not natural or if it's not a rhythm of their life that they've already done? Like, are there certain resources or is it, I don't know, how?
No, it's never too late. So I'm just going to give you a couple of things. Is first acknowledging, hey, I desire a relationship with you. For some parents, if you haven't ever done this, the system is used to distance, and the system is used to non-connection. If you haven't been connecting from the time they were little. So I'm going to give you a few things we've done. That first is articulating a desire for connection. Listen, you're going to get the eye rolls. You're going to get the whatever. You're going to get the pushback. Be stronger than that, right? Because it is uncomfortable. And I remember came in and told Eric one time with one of our kids, hey, he tends to talk to me over a Starbucks drink. And I'm not joking about this.
Yeah.
We changed our budget. The first time we changed our budget to include Starbucks drinks about 3 times a week because that's when he would talk, and it was junior high years, okay? But if he would sit in the back seat when he would sit in the front seat with me, parents, don't get reactive. He sat in the back seat. At least he's in the car with me. At least he's talking, right? And so I'm like, okay, so I told Eric, if we get a grande, we get almost into the deeper part of how he's feeling.
Wow.
If we go venti and we drive another 15 minutes for that drink, I get the real stuff.
Wow.
So we changed our budget
Again, to include that venti. What a great observation, though.
But this is how you have to go in to know your child, right? I have another one that anytime he would say, hey, can y'all both come to my room? Then we knew, I don't care that we're butt tired.
Yeah.
We're about to have an hour-long talk because this kid likes words, okay? And it was always the night I wasn't in the mood. Always. But he would hold it in, and then here was the moment.
Yeah.
Don't miss the moment.
Don't miss the moment.
Don't miss the moment. Whatever it costs, take the moment. For some kids, it's right after school. If you don't get I have one that's right after school, and he's going to verbalize everything in 2 seconds flat, and then I'm not going to probably get another word from him after we show. You know what? I went to my boss, and I said, I got to pick my kid up. I got to pick my kid up. And thank God, that's when I worked for Beltway, and I got to pick my kid up because that's when we connected. Learn your kid. There's a time and a space. Eric, another thing we did from the time they were young is he rotated, because we have 5 kids. Everybody remember that? And so it was like we had 4 kids in school, and Eric would Wednesdays, and they would rotate which kid. Listen, it was 30 minutes. But every kid knew when it was time. And yes, we got to high school when sometimes the kids would say, hey, I want to go to lunch with my friends. And he was like, when's our 30 minutes going to be this week then? If you value it, they learn to value it. Listen, they want time with you whether they know it or not yet.
Yeah.
So you keep offering it till...
At the core of any human is wanting to be chosen. And so when you approach, again... We're talking about teenagers, but this applies to anyone who's married. This applies to friendships, whatever. Like making it, like asking, like, I want time with you. When are we going to have it? And it not having to be like, hey, we need 3 hours to talk through everything deep in life. Like you tell me that, and I'm like, no, sorry. But if you're like, hey, let's go on a walk or let's go throw the Frisbee, that might be 3 hours, and you're going to like hear me pour out my heart because I'm doing an activity. It's like, so just choosing that. And so, like Shelley said, even if they're not responding to it well at first, they will when it continues to pursue them, because inside of every single person is just a little boy and a little girl that wants to be chosen, that wants to be loved, that wants to be good enough for someone to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And find what they love. Parents, find what they love.
Yeah.
Don't always make them do what you love. Find what they love and go do it with them.
Yeah.
I think there's one thing specifically on that note, Brett, that I remember this last spring, the Lord just challenged me with guys that I'm close with, and especially over the summer, to remind them and tell them like how much I love them, how much I'm for them, and how much I'm for what God is doing. And so I started doing it with one of my friends. Started doing it and just started doing it consistently. And I sat him down one night, and this was just one of my friends.
Yeah.
And I sat him down and looked him in the eyeballs, and I said, "Hey, I know I've never told you this before, and I'm so sorry that I haven't, but I love you so much. I'm so for you, and I'm so for what God is doing." And Shelley, I actually really do mean that right now.
Yeah.
But just like the intimacy and vulnerability that brings to any conversation, and not just do it. Just and at first it was hard to just not just get in the religious habit of doing it every day, but literally meaning it and showing him. But it was crazy how much more vulnerable he was willing to be with me, and how much more vulnerable I was able to be with him.
Yeah.
And so that's just one thing, and I'm so thankful that my parents do that every day.
That's awesome.
My parents wake up every morning. They tell me how much they love me and tell me that I hope you have a great day and that I'm for you.
Wow.
And what that does though is it empowers me.
Yeah.
It really does. And I was just thinking about this, about things that when people empower others, what it actually does. And I just wrote a few down. And for me, it makes me feel like I'm able to accomplish my goals for the day. It makes me feel like I'm satisfied with my life choices and what's going on in my life right now and whose kingdom I'm serving. It helps me believe that someone actually does believe in me and that someone is for me.
It's huge.
And it helps me prepare for the day and everyday life, that I'm able to start my day every day on a positive note. But just to answer your question, like my 3 things that I just want to give to everyone right fast is that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Totally okay. But it's not okay to not stay, or it's not okay to not stay or not go to a place of being okay.
Yeah. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay.
Yes, exactly. The other one is that be willing to be vulnerable.
And that's tough. You got to fight for that. It's awkward.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you, Nathan knows this straight up. I can't tell you walking with him and him discipling me, just like how awkward it would be at first just to like tell him stuff. But I can't tell you like I know I can go to him about absolutely anything now,
Yeah.
and that literally because he tells me all the time that he loves me and that he's so for me,
Yeah.
and that I know I can go to him with absolutely anything. So be willing to be vulnerable. James chapter 5 verse 16, it says, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." And I can't tell you how many times that conversations with Nathan or with even my own friends where I've gone to them, confess something, and that we've been able to pray about it and talk about it and communicate about it, and how I've been able to experience freedom.
Yeah.
And so just from freedom in my own mental health and sin and everything, just in my everyday life. The last thing is just be devoted. Be devoted to God. Love God. When we are devoted to God, like I said earlier, and we had this conversation earlier, that when we know the truth will set us free. And we know that who the Son sets free is free indeed. And so those 3 things.
Yeah. We need to wrap up. This is awesome conversation. Again, I mean, we could probably talk about this for hours and hours and hours. But I want to give the last couple of minutes to Shelley. And Shelley, would you help give us insight, help give listeners insight? When is a time that you need to seek outside help or outside counsel? And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'm gonna jump on 2. Okay, anxiety and depression is a lot of times how internal struggle of children will begin to, and I'm talking children all the way to teenagers, will begin to manifest. Okay, so I'm just going to give you some top ones. All right. You're going to see kind of the spectrum, especially younger kids, but even as you move into teenagers, you're going to typically, when there's, like I said, we all have some level of anxiety, but as that increases, you're going to see either kids begin to more and more shut down or more and more act out. Okay. That can be, the acting out could be explosive anger. The acting out could be kind of attack mode. It could be more verbalization of internal feeling overwhelmed. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. If you're hearing your kids say that, they may not just be physically tired. They might be. And that's a huge thing. You need to make sure your kids are sleeping and eating, period.
Yeah.
They need to be sleeping. Get their phones out of their rooms. Get their video games out of their rooms if they're not sleeping. They need to sleep. They need to eat healthy. Okay, so that's a huge thing. If we could get that going, we'd be doing well. But if you're seeing an anxiousness where they're constantly stressed, a lot of times you'll see them doing physical things. Like if you're seeing them fidget, if you're seeing them pull their hair, if you're seeing them physical expressions of anxiety, right? And you're hearing them, I'm tired, I feel overwhelmed, sad, crying all the time, or they're completely shutting down and they're going away and they're unable to engage and they're not wanting to do the things that they usually do, then what I would say is, when is it time to seek help? It's time to seek help when you're hearing an ongoing pattern of more anxiety or sadness and depression than you are seeing joy and life and vitality.
Yeah.
The second thing that I would say is, if they're in a place where they say, this is most of my mental energy is going to trying to manage my anxiety, my fear, my overwhelmness, then you need to hear them.
Yeah.
You don't need to try to fix it yourself. You need to say, and here's what I love. Parents who have kids that are opposed to going and getting counseling and help, it happens all the time. If you will say, my counselor, I'm going to counseling. My counselor said that I need to learn how to help you. I need to be a better parent to you. Would you come talk to them about how I can better parent you? I'm telling you, most children are happy to help their parents be a better parent. They don't have a problem with that. They might be too insecure and feel too nervous about going and get help themselves, but they're happy to help you. So you go.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I want to learn to be a better parent. And you say to them, but when you see your kid really struggling, and you know your kid's normal nature.
Yeah.
And if we're not seeing that consistently, it's a one thing. I've had kids that have struggled for 3-4 weeks at a time. But when we're a couple of months in and we're not getting breakthrough, and we've changed our eating, changed our sleeping, we've gotten to the root of problems, and we're still not the vibrant, normal person that we are, then it's time to act. And if there's one thing I see, it's parents waiting too late and too long.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Because your kids are feeling overwhelmed and they don't know how to get it out. And you don't want it coming out in the ways numbing through addiction, or honestly, where it's so dark that they don't have hope anymore.
Yeah, don't wait till it gets to crisis
No,
to
absolutely.
get help.
Yes.
And again, I want to reiterate as I wrap it up, that being able to see these patterns in whether it's your own teenagers or whether it's people you're mentoring, whether it's your spouse, you've got to spend time with them.
Yes, you do.
You got to
It's
know
relational.
their life, their patterns, their habits, just
So
to
you
be
can
able
catch it.
Yeah, so you can catch it. Like, you need to see them, you need to hear them, you need to be with them. And so
one more thing I want to say, throw in there, because it is part of the pathway. If you need counseling, don't quit till you are with a professional counselor that you need. But I would also say sometimes in the pathway, it's safer for kids to go to somebody that they feel emotionally close to, a teacher, a pastor. Find somebody with them that they feel like they can at least open up to. You can get to a counselor as soon as you need to, but get them around some kind of community where this starts coming out. And if you have to start with someone safe, then start with someone safe. And it's a great question. Hey, babe, we're going to get help. use we, not you.
Yeah.
You need help. No, we are going to get help. Who feels safest for you to start, for us to start
good.
with,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So they know
good.
you're with them in the journey.
That's really good. I just want to highlight, and I'll wrap it up with this. Shelley said something that really stuck out to me. I wrote it down. I'm going to name the episode this. She said, "Don't miss the moment." And as this conversation has developed, we have kind of landed on and around just the power of presence.
Yes.
Power of being with one another, with being with others, but also the power of the presence of being with God, knowing God, being in His Word, and letting Him be the standard. So, guys, thank you so much for today. I definitely want to have all of you back on. It was awesome. Appreciate y'all. And yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Well, once again, we want to thank you for listening to the Beyond Sundays podcast. It was a great conversation. It was long, but it went by really quickly in the room. Hopefully it went by really quickly for you. If you want any information on our student ministry here at Beltway Park, you can go to beltway.org/BSM, or just click on the ministries page and then find our student ministry page. You can also follow them on Instagram. And we would encourage you all, if you have not been watching through the Flip the Script series with us that we've been in, you can do so by going to YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Beltway Park Church, and then find the Flip the Script series. And I encourage you to follow along with us as we dive into this journey of winning the war in our mind and achieving healthy mental health. It's important for all of us. Not only is our mental health being attacked more than ever, we're also having the most awareness of it that we've ever had before. So we want you to enter this journey with us. Hey, be sure to hit that subscribe button to this podcast so you can stay up to date with all of the episodes that we release. And once again, we encourage you, follow Beltway Park Church on social media. Our handle is Beltway Park on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And again, YouTube is Beltway Park Church. Hey, we hope you have a great week. Be blessed. And remember, God is moving in your life beyond Sundays.